You're muted, Dearbold. You can't be muted. You are the only one that can't be muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I said that. Yeah, that's completely fine with me. No worries. Thanks for checking, Jar.
Okay. All right. So the live streaming automatically creates the recording as well. So we're good.
Okay. So this afternoon we have Dierwold van Heerden, who's going to talk to us about the nitrulase mechanism. Dierwold has made several very interesting observations about the active site of this enzyme. There have been several attempts to explain how it works that have been in the literature, but none of them have actually been based on real structures. So Dierwold's main contribution to the science has been to use a real structure to model the various steps. And he's done this in a number of novel ways that he'll explain to us. Let's talk a little bit about Dierwold. Dierwold did his PhD in Stellenbosch um, under Len Barber, and then he decided he would move into the world of enzymes, and he's been working very hard to try and understand a mechanism that has defied the human race at this stage. So let's hear what you have to say, Dierwold. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Unfortunately, the host has still disabled participating screen sharing. So, Lawrence, I think you're the only person with admin rights that can possibly fix that.
Apologies. This is the first time we've done it this year, so I've forgotten all the
Exactly.
steps.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I have options. There we go. Okay, I hope you guys can see me now. Let me just move that there. Okay. So yeah, as I said, thank you, Trevor, for that kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to present some of our work in the field of biocatalysis. So the nitrulase superfamily, which includes amidases, are thiol enzymes that catalyze the hydrolysis and condensation of carbon-nitrogen linkages. Nitrulases hydrolyze nitriles into amides, while amidases hydrolyze amides into carboxylic acids. There are several possible applications of nitrulases in biotechnology, including the chemoregio and enantioselective synthesis of amides and carboxylic acids. Depending on the substrate, nitrulases can produce amide and carboxylic acid products in a certain acid to amide ratio. This ratio can be varied through changes to the residues surrounding the active site. The bifurcation between the products happens after the formation of the thioimidate. Okay, the thioester intermediate has been captured for an amidase from TB, along with the catalytic cysteine, highlighted here in green. A sequence alignment has identified conserved glutamate and lysine residues, and soon after the first structures were solved, it was found that a second glutamate, hydrogen bonded to the lysine, is always present. The carbonyl oxygen of this thioester is positioned in the so-called oxyanion hole, formed by the lysine and the backbone amide of the residue following the catalytically active cysteine. And this is also the location where the nitrile or the carbonyl of the amide is positioned of the substrates. An intermediate captured in the cryo-electron microscopy structure of a Rhodococcus nitrulase was also recently reported. Although the thioester and thioimidate intermediates could not be distinguished from the structural data, both intermediates have been confirmed by mass spectrometry. The workhorse of our study is the nitrulase from Pseudomonas fluorescens, in which the catalytic tetrad is made up of glutamates 48 and 137, lysine 130, and cysteine 164. Tyrosine is hydrogen bonded to the high number glutamate, while a threonine helps position the nitrile of the phenylacetonitrile substrate in the oxyanion hole. Furthermore, the catalytically relevant water is positioned between the two glutamates. Of note is that we are fortunate to use to be able to use the covalent intermediates of the nitrolase mechanism to gain insights regarding the positioning of the substrates. So we set out to propose a rational mechanism for the catalysis progression in nitrolases based on the careful scrutiny of the active site geometry and chemical intuition. Our approach relies on the arming and disarming of the glutamate lysine catalytic dyad to drive the hydrolysis. All previous postulated nitrolase mechanisms involve the covalent modification of the cysteine. However, such covalently modified amino acids cannot be modeled by the best available modeling tools. Therefore, first, we established a procedure to parameterize non-standard amino acids, enabling molecular dynamics energy minimizations. Subsequently, combined quantum mechanical, molecular mechanical geometry optimizations were performed using ONIUM, followed by natural bond orbital analysis. So a non-standard residue must be parameterized in a way that allows it to bond to the previous and next residues in the protein chain. By capping the residue with an N-methyl and acetyl group and conducting the steps shown here, the Ambertool suite of programs was used to create the necessary parameters, that is, bond angle and the hydral values, as well as bond charges for the backbone of the side chain. I hope the video shows, but yeah, with the parameters in hand, the geometries of the structures were energy minimized using Isolde. Isolde is a graphical molecular mechanics program that in addition to the traditional force field, utilizes a force field term in which the electron density map is introduced. Shown here is a live view of a molecular dynamics run of the thioimidate tetrahedral intermediate, while the cysteine is rotated so that its sulfur atom points towards the lysine. Just gonna give some time for the video to play again. So that's like kind of where I started, and Isolde allows you to interactively modulate the structure as while the molecular dynamics run is ongoing. So, using the molecular dynamics minimized structures, we next performed combined quantum mechanical, molecular mechanical geometry optimizations, followed by natural bond orbital analysis. This enabled us to describe the progression of each stage of the reaction. In addition, we also performed potential energy surface scans to confirm the viability of certain steps. In the first step of our proposed reaction sequence, the cysteine performs a nucleophilic attack on the nitrile, while the glutamate abstracts the thiol proton via a water conduit, and at the same time, lysine donates a proton to form the thioimidate. In PO analysis, revealed that the positioning of the nitrile in the highly polarized active site provides favorable overlap between the S-type sulfur lone pair orbital and the pi-type CN antibonding orbital of the nitrile, enabling the reaction to proceed. A potential energy surface scan was conducted by shrinking the distance between the nitrile carbon atom and the cysteine sulfur atom. By only changing this parameter, the water played its conduit role perfectly, with the glutamate abstracting a proton from the water, which abstracted the thiol proton from cysteine, thereby forming the thioimidate. Okay, continuing with the reaction sequence, after the formation of the thioimidate, the dyad is rearmed, enabling the water to perform a nucleophilic attack on the thioimidate to form the tetrahedral intermediate. In BO analysis again revealed favorable overlap between the S-type water lone pair orbital and the pi-type CN antibonding orbital of the thioimidate, which enabled the reaction to proceed. Another potential energy surface scan was conducted by shrinking the distance between the water oxygen atom and the thioimidate carbon atom. By only changing this parameter, the dyad did its job. That is, the glutamate abstracted a proton from water and lysine donated a proton to form the amino group of the tetrahedral intermediate. And there we go. So yeah, below a distance of approximately 1.6, the cascade takes place. So after the thioimidate tetrahedral intermediate has formed, the diode is again rearmed, and the cysteine undergoes a rotation so that its sulfur atom points towards the lysine. In this configuration, the sulfur is primed to abstract the proton from lysine, while the glutamate abstracts the proton from the hydroxyl proton to release the amide. Following a rearming of the diode, the amide product can be substituted for a nitrile substrate and the reaction repeated. So to summarize the nitrolysis mechanism for converting nitriles into amides, yeah, that's the summary that's shown here. However, once the thioimidate tetrahedral intermediate has formed, there are two possibilities of products, depending on whether the CS or CN bond is broken. The predominant product, as mentioned in the introduction, the predominant product depends on the substrate and specific changes to the environment of the active site. If the CS bond is broken, as in the reaction step C, shown on screen, the amide product is formed. However, if the CN bond breaks, instead, in the bifurcated state, the thioester forms with the release of ammonia. Okay, so yeah, this is what needs to take place in amidases. So in our proposed amidase reaction mechanism, the cysteine performs a nucleophilic attack on the amide to form a deuterohonic intermediate. Then, with the subsequent release of ammonia, the thioester is formed. Here it is important to note subtle differences between nitrolases and amidases regarding the position of the catalytic water molecule. In amidases, the water is hydrogen bonded to the low-numbered glutamate and the backbone carbonyl of a serine or threonine. However, in all known nitrolases, this position features a proline, and the water molecule is instead positioned between the two catalytically relevant glutamates. Furthermore, in nitrolases, a threonine or serine additionally stabilizes the oxyanion hull, and this additional hydrogen bond residue is absent from amidases. Returning to the nitrolase reaction mechanism, once the thioester has formed, water performs a nucleophilic attack on the thioester to afford the tetrahedral intermediate. In BO analysis revealed favorable overlap between the S-type water lone pair orbital with the pi-type CO antibonding orbital of thioester, enabling the reaction to proceed. Following arming of the dyad, the cysteine again undergoes a rotation so that its sulfur atom points towards the lysine. And in this configuration, the sulfur is primed to abstract the proton from lysine, while glutamate abstracts the hydroxyl proton to release the carboxylic acid product. Following Rearming of the dyad, the acid product can be substituted for a nitrile and the reaction repeated. There's the native active site. So yeah, with release of the product, another nitrile reactant can be substituted so that the reaction sequence, the catalytic sequence repeats. So to recap, the reaction progression from the thioimidate tetrahedral intermediate to ultimately form the carboxylic acid product. And again, this is the bifurcated step C prime. Otherwise, if an amide has formed from the normal step C from the thioimidate tetrahedral intermediate, the amide product is released and the reaction doesn't progress to the carboxylic acid, but a new nitrile product and a substrate is included so that an amide is formed. However, if the CN bond breaks in state, the thioester is formed with the release of ammonia, and then the reaction is committed to forming the carboxylic acid. So, to summarize, we've developed an as yet non-automated procedure to parameterize non-standard amino acids for classical mechanics calculations. Using the molecular dynamics minimized structures, we subsequently performed QMMM geometry optimizations and natural bond orbital analysis. Based on the careful scrutiny of the optimized active site geometries of various covalent intermediates, along with chemical intuition, we proposed a rational nitrolysis reaction sequence. I would like to acknowledge the UCT HPC for the ample use of their resources, as well as Prof. Sewell and our collaborators. So yeah, short and sweet, but thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Theobald. That was pretty good. I have several questions. I don't know whether I should start asking questions or whether other people would like to ask questions. Does anybody want to start off on the question asking? Okay, I'll start. Theobald, why do you think that the reaction, once an amide is formed, why does the reaction not proceed to the thioester?
Yeah, again, I think it's very to do with the very subtle changes in the, or like where's my, I'm trying
Do you
to
want to
find
show the
my,
relevant slide?
yes, I'm trying to, there we go, I think it's that one. Yeah, comparison between the nitrolases and amidases. I think this is something that, yeah, I wanted to test over the vacation, but didn't get around to it. Whether the presence of this additional hydrogen bonded hydrogen bonding residue that further stabilizes or further polarizes the oxyanion hole, whether the presence or absence of this threonine or serine doesn't allow the amide to be activated enough for water to open it up to form the thioester. So yeah, I don't have a concrete answer to why the reaction doesn't proceed once the amide has formed four nitrolases, but that is something that hopefully we'll soon discover an answer for.
I think you might get to the answer faster if we could show not if you could show not the nuclear positions but the orbital positions.
Ah.
And I think you discover that that is a frustrated Lewis pair in the active site.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're right that there's something that prevents the alignment of orbitals. If you could, I wonder how can you soften the bond, at least the rotation rate, the rotation constant. You might get the channel would that Trevor's talking about would probably open. Does that make sense, Trevor? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, the location of the water also differs between the amidases and nitrolases. So I didn't focus so much on the amidases in this study, but it was quite difficult to get the water and the antibonding orbital of the amide to overlap favorably. Whereas if the water is located as shown on the left, hydrogen bonded to this serine or threonine, which is absent, or at least is a proline in nitrolases, that I think even from this angle, it even looks like the water is more perpendicularly aligned with that CO bond in the amidases. Yeah, well, of course, this is now a thio ester intermediate, but yeah, as also just shown in shared in the introduction, these covalent intermediates does lend a lot of information or like hints at where the substrates are located. So the amide is also similarly located to how the thioester is orientated. So the difference in where the catalytic or the hydrolyzing water is located is also important. But yeah, looking at the orbitals will definitely shed some more light on the situation.
Okay, I want to put in two thoughts here. The one is that the water position is only different once the thioester is formed. That's the one point. And the other point is that in the case of the amino group, you have so in the case of the amide, you have an amino group which does actually hydrogen bond to the backbone. So what you've shown in the amidase is the situation once the thioester has already formed. So we want to actually go back to
of the bonds. So when
okay, so we want to go back one step to the point where the amide is positioned in the active site with the oxygen in the oxyanion hole and the amino group finding its hydrogen bonding pairs.
Yes, exactly, because the amino group does actually take up the space of the water. So yeah, looking at the well, yeah, before this step is where the barification takes place. I think if I go here, basically, yeah. So yeah, looking at the tetrahedral intermediate of the thioimidate, and whether to see, well, yeah, this will determine the product of the nitrolase, but yeah, the positioning of the amide, comparing that for the amidases and nitrolases will definitely yeah, answer that question of whether the reaction can proceed at all if you give a nitrolase an amide, whereas in amidases it definitely does proceed.
Very quickly. The part on your part is really very professionally written. What I wanted
Not sure who's having a
Who's not
conversation.
I think it's Lawrence.
My experience with
Lawrence, are you muted? There we are.
Yes, there we are.
Where's Lawrence? Okay, so any other questions for Dewald?
I have a question.
Good.
Trevor?
Yeah, go
Can you hear
ahead.
me?
Yes, I can.
Dearvald, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Okay, so at the beginning of your talk lecture, you mentioned very briefly something about the literature. Of course, any mechanistic appraisal, particularly if you are pushing a particular slant on a mechanism, it rests and falls on the comparison with known mechanisms. And you didn't say anything about how this, what I perceive to be a new mechanistic trail being followed. You didn't say anything about how it's different or the same, how it stands up against the known literature, dare I say, dogma of mechanism, which is always there in some shape or form. So what do you think? What would you say to a reviewer about this mechanism versus the rest or the other mechanisms maybe?
Well, yeah, there are a couple of like very much just a handful of mechanisms previously proposed, but all of those mechanisms were I want to say basically just trying to connect the dots, whereas we have a structurally based or structurally informed mechanism. So yeah, in this one mechanism that yeah I kind of visualize in my head now, they yeah basically just use the catalytic tetrad as they see fit, whether the arrows that they have in their mechanism is feasible or not. They couldn't yeah make that call because they didn't have structural data, whereas we do. So there is some overlap, but with previous mechanisms. But where they kind of just show that a thioimidate has formed, starting from the nitrile, we kind of yeah want to show the specific reaction cascade for the formation of each step, instead of so people do
Sure, I mean that's a given in any mechanism, but that's what I'm getting at is that each of these individual steps, shouldn't you be comparing them with the known accepted mechanism from the literature and bringing in some level of thermodynamics? So in
that
the
was gonna be
arming,
right.
you say the arming and the disarming is the key thing, but okay, so that can be compared to the literature, which presumably it seems to use some arming and some disarming. It's neither here nor there. It's not using it in a consistent way, but I can't see how you can just present a mechanism and say, "What do you think?" kind of thing. It's the mechanism is always certainly in the organic literature, it's presented against something. It's a juxtaposition, not a bland statement.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yeah,
convince somebody that your mechanism is better.
yeah,
But
and
on
the
what
only
basis? Is it
the only
thermodynamics? Is it orbital alignment, frustrated lone pairs, as somebody mentioned?
yeah.
You've got to point out the differences. The use of Bronsted acids, I mean, that seems to be very higgledy-piggledy in the known mechanisms. Sometimes it's water, which seems a bit weird. The lysine is ignored. The protonated lysine is often ignored, although that's obviously a fairly good proton donor, Bronsted acid. So you know what I mean? You've got to point out it's not just about your mechanism, it's about how your mechanism stands up or stacks up really against the known knowledge. Because that's what if I'm a reviewer, I'm going to say, well, this is where we are, and you're saying this. I'm going to compare the two.
Yeah. Um, I've been trying for basically the entire 2025 to draw a reaction coordinate diagram with like the free energy of each step, and of course getting the activation energies for the transition states. But yeah, I've been struggling immensely with obtaining the transition states. So, for example, in these potential energy surface scans, let's go, for example, for this one, um, um, or yeah, comparing to, or like based on previous studies, they just say that they use this high energy point, which is labeled in like highlighted in orange here, and then do a transition state optimization for that step, and I only get one imaginary frequency, and they do the frequency calculation with for the transition state, and they have that for energy point, and of course doing that for the substrates and products in ground states, you can get actual activation energies. However, yeah, we've not yet been able to get any of our transition states to optimize with one imaginary frequency. And that, yeah, to answer your question, Roger, that's the only way we can really um, um, say that our mechanism is better than another mechanism, is that our mechanism or their mechanism, depending on what the transition state energies gives us, what activation energies give us, that's the only way that we can um, um, say which mechanism is better, is the one that has the lower activation barrier, is the one that's gonna
Okay, on that score, I mean, the way if you take this, what's on the screen now, it looks very concerted, doesn't it? Everything's a da 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 da, and that's presumably makes the calculation very complex. So what happens if you split those steps up? So if you say go for a more base catalyzed, the O minus of the glue cools the proton off, water, so you just get to the thiolates, as sort of a general base catalyzed mechanism, and then it attacks. Could you split those steps up and still get a comparative outcome, comparative to the known literature outcome?
That
What
is
is
actually
stopping?
something that we did try to do, is breaking this like 4-arrow step, like because 4 things happens all at the same time, into its constituent portions, and
Yeah.
trying to get a transition state of each of those 4 steps and trying to overlay them to get a global or like a yeah, let's use the word global.
Or could you,
version
for
state
instance,
for
take the
state.
glue, the water, and the thiol, the cysteine, and just do something with that to get an S minus, and then bring
Yeah.
in the nitrile, and that would form the thioimidate as an N minus, and then protonate it using. Then it was just split it up, and could that be done? And would that? How would that? I don't, whether this is truly concerted in the way that it's depicted, or it's really just a series of steps. Obviously, is a big question.
May
Yeah,
I ask a question?
that's
Seeing
the next
I
step. Thank you,
raised my
Roger.
hand. On what structure was the other attempt at doing a quantum mechanical analysis of the nitrylase done? On the basis of what structural information?
I think besides the pseudomonas fluorescence structure, the most calculations were performed on a rhodococcus structure.
So there was a quantum mechanical analysis of the rhodococcus structure. Is that true? Who did that?
I think so. No, like of the calculations that I did, from the literature, I'm not
So who
sure.
else in the literature has done a quantum mechanical analysis based on a real structure?
Yeah, that there is this chem paper that I basically seeing that they they succeeded in obtaining a reaction coordinate. That's what inspired me to attempt getting my own reaction coordinate. I'm not sure what source, what nitrylase they used in their study, but they also used onium in their calculations. So yeah, why they succeeded in obtaining their transition state structures, like but specifically in that paper, as I answered Prof. Hunter, they simply say that they performed the potential energy surface scan, and then using the high energy configuration, they performed a transition state optimization to obtain the and proved that it's a transition state in that it only yielded a frequency calculator only yielded one imaginary frequency, and that's their that one free energy point, and then doing the same for the substance products. They made it, as literature most of the time comes across. They made it sound so easy, but yeah, we've been struggling a lot. But looking at their structure
before you say any more. I think look up and see if they actually used a real structure, because if they're using entirely model structures, they can do anything with their model. So if you use a real structure and you use the real positioning of a substrate, as you have done based on covalent interactions, it changes the landscape completely. If they're making things up without using any reference to measured structures, then they can conclude anything they want.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll delve into that paper a bit deeper. Thank you, Trevor. I see Lawrence has his hand up.
Yeah, I somewhat related to what Trevor just said, maybe in contradiction, is that you can do whatever you want by changing the substrate by, let's say, adding some electron withdrawing groups to whatever R is. And you could also use, I mean, you can use some isotopes. I guess can you isotopes in molecular mechanics? Yes. You can put heavier make oxygen heavier.
So you'd better answer that, Diebold. You can tell Lawrence that we have a lot of experimental data.
with isotopes effects and with electron withdrawing groups
Not
and
with
such?
isotope effects, but with different electron withdrawing groups.
Okay.
Yeah, the different electron withdrawing groups might then induce some steric hindrance and or like pull the substrate off to a certain side. like it might fit a bit different if the electron withdrawing group is quite big or too close to the nitrile. But yeah, that is something that can be done. Like for example, replacing the phenol ring will shed some light, because this is actually a modeled a model substrate, because nitrile was the original substrate for this enzyme, and then we actually did simplify the substrate. So yeah, maybe making the substrate the actual substrate for which we have experimental data will help provide some more information on the mechanism, or help us keep getting a transition state successfully minimized.
Okay, can I speak again? Dewald, will you be able to start writing a paper now?
Well, we kind of have have an outline of a paper, and I think after all of the years, we do now have at least a mechanism that we've agreed on. But yeah, I still want to get the reaction coordinate to, as Prof. Hunter has said, that's the question that any reviewer will have, is how does this compare to the literature? And to answer that question, you kind of have to in my opinion, you have
But
to.
why don't you write down what you have already?
Okay, yeah. Will do.
And then argue each point as a against what there exists in the literature, as there is a great deal in the literature.
Yeah.
So argue each point and defend what you've done against what other people have done.
Okay.
And you can also point out that you've identified at least 2 amino acids that play a role that have not previously been identified, which is the proline and the threonine.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, are there any other people that want to ask questions? Chart, have you exhausted your questions?
Encourage people to look into this. And
sorry, no, Trevor, I don't have a question. Thank you.
And is Gerard still here, or has he gone? He's abandoned.
I haven't abandoned you, but I'm in Dewald's camp with those transition states. Forever wishing, I'm hoping we can get them, but I'm not committing to anything here publicly.
Okay. Anybody else want to ask a question? I can see that there are quite a few people joined. No further questions? Okay, then with that, I thank Dewald very much for giving this rather good talk, and very interesting, and stimulated quite a lot of discussion, quite a lot of argument. And I think it's time that we put it out there, Dewald. And thanks for doing this, and thanks for everybody coming to the talk. And this is it's great, I think, that everybody is joining us, and that we have a chance to discuss our work. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Are your figures?
Sorry, I'm sort of multitasking here.
Lawrence, do you want to stop the recording?
Yep. Let me do that. And I'll turn off the AI companion.
Lawrence,
Yes.
just a question or two about the Biophysics conference.
Yep.
Of March. Yeah, so the time is getting
Time is
short.
slipping. Yeah.
Yeah, so I see that the website is up and running, so that is great. But what is the status otherwise? Have you invited some speakers?
I've invited some speakers. There's been a sort of a slow rollout of call for abstracts, but I'm trying to make a nice graphic to do the full rollout.
Okay, excellent. Any confirmations from invited speakers?
I got 2 so far.
Okay, well, that's a
So
good start at least.
so there'll be something, and they'll there'll be enough for I think as long as we have enough for 2 days, we can declare victory, or even 1 day actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you
But
say you're working...
but the thing, with people, with people, always the last day with abstracts.
Yeah,
So
that's how we work.
you can ask people, even invited speakers who say yes, they don't do the abstract. So they have you on pins and needles, thinking that hoping that they'll remember. But yeah, I'm on it.
Okay, wonderful. So you say you're working on an ad that we can send around soon.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Because we must start to get the message out soon.
Yep. And but what I wanted to do is, I haven't been able to get in touch with the guys in Kenya, the SABs.
I haven't recently communicated with them, no.
Okay. And also, I wanted to reach out to the IUBMB people, or the BMB people from South Africa, the Federation, the Pan-African Federation.
Okay.
And to get people sort of I would like to get people excited for IUBMB 2027, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We have, so IUPAB has a track for that. Is that what we've agreed to so far? The Biophysics Union will have a
IUBMB. Yes, we will be given a track, yes.
Okay.
I actually have to go and check our communication again, because at some point we suggested that the biophysics talks could be integrated throughout the whole conference, but I think Ed wasn't too interested in that option. So I think they're just going to allocate a separate section or session, sorry, for biophysics.
I would like to likewise reaching out to IUFAR, the pharmacologist. And I don't know whomever else. So I think as the AFCA people, the crystallographers, Trevor, still not interested in structural biology. Is that right? Is that a true statement? Or Trevor might be gone by already.
Yeah, well, many structural biologists are involved with that, but we will in any case invite all the structural biologists in the country.
Right. Okay. All right. So I'm trying to figure. I'm not very artistically sort of inclined and stuff like that. So I actually have a graphic artist working on that. But
okay, that's great. Otherwise, you can just update this previous times advert.
Right. Okay, but I'll get that out later this week.
Okay, excellent.
So one bit of information about the IUBMB meeting is that academic Paul Capper is the program manager.
Yeah.
So you can nag and cajole him to do what you want, but he's in charge.
Okay, I have good offices with him, so we're gonna ask him to give a plenary talk at the conference in March, which will hopefully focus his attention. I mean, he's spoken at our conferences before, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
How's Kurt doing at the UCT? Another interesting
he's
talk?
fine. He's getting on with it. He's about to ship his first load of crystals to ESRF.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I will get on with all of this and keep you guys posted.
Okay. Thanks, Lawrence.
Okay. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you.
Bye.